Hi, everyone. Welcome back. This is Gina with Soul Inspired Reflections. It has been a while since I've done a reading, probably since the Christ Consciousness deck, where we read and went through each card. And for those of you just joining me, if you haven't checked that out, go ahead and find that playlist for 55 Days of Christ Consciousness, and you may find it supportive along your journey. So again, I'm Gina, Soul Inspired Reflections. And what brings us here today is ego. That has been the theme that I've noticed throughout the week. And maybe the past couple of weeks has been. And just before we get started a little further into the reading, just want to preface it with I have two dogs. One is mine, the other I'm dog sitting. So you may hear dogs in the background. And I may pause in the middle of the recording if I need to correct them. So just know that. So as you get ready to receive whatever information and guidance is going to come through for us, we're going to call on Archangel Metatron to be our primary guide today in relationship to the ego, self-mastery, and your ascension journey, and what information and insights are here for us to look at in the deeper truths about ourselves and how we may be able to alchemize that and bring it to light and within our own world, within the self. And that in itself will project out into the world around us that we create individually and together, and as well as it'll have an impact on collective consciousness too. Because I know some of you, if you're similar to me, in some ways, you are recognizing that this work of healing that we're being asked to do deep within ourselves, we're also being asked to do it for and with the collective. And the more of us that are raising our abilities and walking more in our divinity, our sovereignty, and light and connection to God, that energy begins to filtrate out into the world and into the collective. However, there's many things about this that are purification of the soul is tougher than others, right? I would say, not to put one above the other, but there's some where there's more challenges. I know for myself, judgments run rampant, and I'm constantly correcting myself in that way, but not to run out of my energy where I'm being like self-shaming or anything of that. It's just going into those deeper self-awareness pieces and being like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, I'm recognizing those thoughts. Let me bring it back to my heart center. So part of my purpose here is to support you along your journey and guide you back to your heart. How can you build your skill set, build your pillar of light, your foundational skills, and grow and expand them and upgrade them while you are receiving an upgrade to your actual body through light, through DNA, through raising your consciousness, or having new expanding in your consciousness, really. And that brings on various things for each of us, right? So as we get started here, let's go ahead and light this candle, representing the light within you, the light within me, the light within the whole of life, and the light that we're all connected to. And you might hear Teddy here. I'm going to just take in that light. Take it into your third eye center. Breathe that light down and through the crown, through your light body, through the light column, into the earth, and really just feel that go through your chakras, through the core of your body, into the earth and back up again. As we call on Archangel Sandalphon to assist us in grounding and expanding your earth star chakra. He hears your call. He hears your prayer. Breathing in. Really activate and support your pranic tube through the breath. Feeling your body relax, anchoring in. And let's take that energy all the way back up through the body to the heart of the universe, calling on Archangel Metatron to assist us in our stellar gateway and the energies that come through that center, that it may always be clear, purified, and protected, and only our divine essence and source God energy comes through that point. And we have guides at that center, like Metatron, to support us until we know and learn and can handle the stability of our own light body on our own. We don't get anywhere by ourselves, as some would like to believe. We have many energies and guides and assistants in growing into our self-mastery and remembering what that is and how to embody it and be it and become it. If you have water, take some water throughout this reading. Okay. So we're going to pull first from, again, what's bringing this up is the ego. The ego and its relationship with spirituality communities, or really any community. And so many people have been talking about, oh, spiritual ego, this and that. And it's just ego. It's just ego, right? And you're just putting spirituality in front of it. So those of us, many of us, as we're growing and expanding, sometimes when we get in the comfort of knowing our experience and mastering something, we begin to feed that identity and go, well, I'm this, I have all this and this and this and this. And we lead with that. And to me, in the neurolinguistics piece of that, it's an expression of where there's an insecurity within that person, right? So even as we call in Metatron's energy, and we're also going to call in for our expansion, right? Because we want to expand our understanding and perception of the ego, right? Because the ego is not a bad thing, as so many people want to depict it as. When we're out of harmony with our heart center, we can over-identify with the labeled, our studies, our spiritual growth, where we take it into the negative polarity. So it's bringing that awareness into when you're operating, or if someone else is operating in that, I would say a lower vibration within that, within the energy of the self, we must become aware of, right? So some key points that came up as I prepared for today a little bit is remembering just ego, what the root or origin of that word is the self, especially in metaphysics. It's the self. I am, right? So you start to go into the I am meditations as you are becoming and remembering you are an ascended master, and you're remembering how to be that, right? You're heading toward enlightenment. You're anchoring in that Christ consciousness energy within and through your light body, which then activates and you on a cellular level, a DNA level, and through the blood, right? Your body is literally changing through this organic process we refer to as ascension. Okay. So keeping in mind, this is how does it relate to ascension, Christ consciousness, and supporting you through your own navigation of your ego, how to recognize it, and what skill sets that may interest you in developing. Okay. And what's wrapped up in some of this is ability of discernment, judgment, paying attention of judgment, the ability to surrender and let go as you develop your power of listening. And I mean listening with depth, Because even here, as you're preparing yourself, I really invite you, if you're already thinking like, oh, and making criticisms and critiques in your mind right now, even as I'm speaking, pay attention and let's go back into your heart and go, oh, you know what? Let me just listen. Just let go of the thoughts, be aware of them, and just let them out through the breath and surrender it to light. Surrender it. Ask Sound of Fun to assist you. Ask Metatron to assist you, your guide, your higher self. Call in your higher self, because this too is about your sovereignty. Your connecting with your I am presence, your higher aspect right now as you're preparing just to receive information. You do not have to agree with it in any way, shape, or form, but if it ignites or inspires you to maybe go into contemplation, self-reflection, beautiful, and then take time to journal for yourself and go, oh, you know what? Some of these things I may not agree with, but it brought up something for me within me, right? Because when we have these experiences, it may bring up something within your cellular being that you need to bring light to and alchemize, bring into harmony as you continue your path forward in your ascension process, your awakening, as you become a co-creator and master creator, master being of light. Okay. And our power to deeply listen, it's so multifaceted. You have to be able to listen to what's occurring within yourself, listening to the surroundings that you were in. When you're engaging with other people, you're listening to not just what they're saying, but you're also taking in through the eyes, through your senses, the tone of their speech, the body language, the use of language and words. All of our body, the subtle body energies, the aura, the subtle fields of us is taking in information. And there's millions of neurons happening all at once, bringing in information. Our chakra system is constantly collecting information and receiving and giving information. We do not need to speak to give information and to receive it, right? So how might we purify also our communication center, the throat, also the heart, the gut? The system works together. Our third eye center expanding, right? Bringing in your I am presence so you can expand your vision, not just your actual vision, but the vision of what you're receiving in information, what you're hearing, feeling, sensing. Breathing is a big part to facilitate and master that ability of your senses, sensory being, and multidimensionality. So to support you in this process is breathing, working with your pranic tube, pranic breath, tube of light, expanding it into your pillar of light so you can be grounded. And then you activate your parasympathetic nervous system through the breath, calming the body, expanding the diaphragm so it can contract and the rib cage can expand and contract and release, expand and contract so you can be inspired, right? Inspire. So part of this where we can calm ourselves down so we can go deeper into your own self-awareness is through the breath and opening that gateway of the heart. So let's try breathing right now together. And then we're just going to breathe in through the nose and exhale out through the mouth. And allow your shoulders to relax. Go back in to their rightful place. Head back, spine erect. And then on the exhale, relax the body into that seated position. And also feel like your energy being pulled up into the heart of the earth and down in through you, through your spine, through your perineum, down into the earth. And if you need to take a soft gaze in front of you, single point focus, as you focus on your breath right now, please do so. Put your feet flat on the ground if you haven't, or sit in a cross-legged position. This is not about falling asleep. This is about staying present through and with the breath and the relaxation of your physical body, mental body, emotional body. And if you'd like, you can take a moment to just observe how you felt your body change in subtle ways. Like I feel a little more relaxed in my shoulders, calmer in my belly, calmer in my throat, and like tension through the tissue softened. And I'm a little thirsty. So breathing as you are in these interactions with others, and if you notice potential conflict occurring, or maybe you yourself are bolstering your accolades, bolstering what you know, your knowledge, but you haven't turned it into wisdom yet. And you all of a sudden you're recognizing, like, why am I defending so much of what I do by sharing so much of my history when it perhaps might not have been necessary to do that, right? So subtly, the subtle energies running through you, right? Something in you is hitting, like some insecurity of not knowing is getting triggered. So through the breath, when you are in that self-awareness, you can reel yourself back just by breathing, slowing yourself down and then listening. And if you're talking with someone, perhaps just breathe and go, you know, I'd like to hear what you have to say. Like, be in question and curiosity. That's a simple way to kind of slow and reel yourself back as you are practicing a deeper, another level of your self-awareness and letting go of your own self-judgment and your own insecurity. And just inwardly, you could be like, oh, you know what? I think I might be feeling just a little insecure right now, and that's okay. I'm just going to breathe and listen to who's in front of me right now as I'm observing what's occurring with my body and with my emotions, or with myself, with your ego, the self. Part of this ascension journey, self-mastery, you're mastering the self and the subtle bodies. As a soul in this physical body, you're mastering how to use it. How do I use this body of energy and senses? Right? Not just the eyes, not just the ears, not just your ability to speak. It's deeper than that, as those of you are waking up and reaching expanded states of consciousness, recognizing you're connected to something higher than yourself, that you're part of source energy that lives within you. And it's like, how do I integrate my egoic self in the highest vibration and frequency available to me at this time, right? And that takes a someone who's willing to look at themselves. So if you're willing to look at yourself and pay attention, go, hi, God, Metatron, assist me in what is here for me in repurposing and recalibrating my ego into its highest energetic state. How do I operate in that way? What's that look like? What does it feel like in my body? And I have a couple cards that are jumping out to us now from the Metatron deck of Self-Mastery, created by Amanda Ellis. And let's see. There's 3 cards that stood out the most. There's a few others that have popped out, but I'm being told just to take one, and it's in my right hand right now. Okay. So what does this relate? We asked the question of helping with repurposing the ego and balancing it, basically harmonizing it into its highest place. So we have family, circles of life. Okay. We have conquering fear, start today, right? We're talking about sometimes our fear of the unknown, fear of having control or not control. The ego can get triggered, I'll say the negative quality, right? We start to lead with that emotion of fear. That's root chakra. That's our lower chakras in the energetic centers. Solar plexus, sacral, right? It's triggering something in us like, ooh, fight, flight, or freeze, as it might show up in different things. So for me to feel safe, I got to control something, right? I can't admit that I'm wrong, or I can't admit that I don't know something, or I need some more guidance here, right? So, and then there were leadership, answer the call. So even as I was looking at the leadership card, getting ready to pull it up, and hearing that, okay, maybe the spiritual community that is not in harmonics, that there's junk data in the spiritual community, right? Where we can find that. And the extreme of that would be like those that create cults, right? They're operating in the egoic self. They're getting into people's vulnerabilities and fear, and they know how to basically manipulate the energy. What does that mean for you as you're coming into your sovereignty and leadership of your life and co-creating? If you're holding that light for you and for others, and you're going up that beautiful staircase of light, you're holding the keys in your hand. You have this beautiful violet cloak, and even the hair is like this white, more of a lilac, and also a red robe, and that golden. That's the threefold flame colors. That's your divine spark, right? You have the golden light from the fire. You have the almost like a deeper red, but it could also, if you think about pink comes from red and white. And for me, I'm thinking, oh, your divine spark, your divine spark. You're balancing love, wisdom, and power. When you balance the love, wisdom, and power of your divinity, the ego gets repurposed and it's aligned to its highest state, highest frequency, highest expression. You're bringing in your Christ consciousness energy, and you're operating from the highest purpose available to you as a being of light. You begin to light the way by living your life in light, in balance, in harmony, right? So your power of will, God's will, indigo blue, right? Because it's this blue. I don't even know if my eyes are seeing this correctly. Yeah, it's that deep indigo blue, and then the hair is like this violet or lilac color, right? As we purify and stuff, the crown chakra above becomes a different color. You step into your almost like that royalty color, right? But not from an ego. It's more majestic. It's more graceful. How might you be graceful? Pay attention when you are out of grace. When you're in grace, it's a whole nother feel and energy. When someone walks through the room and they are just filled with grace, it's this strong power that just melts over everybody, and their presence is felt throughout the room. without having to be anything but the light within themselves, not trying to be anything. Oh, look at me, look at all my PhDs, look at everything I've studied. I've been doing healing work for 30 plus years. Da, 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 da. When you're leading in that way, I have a doctorate, I have this, that. That's all ego. That's all insecurity popping up. Someone who walks in grace, they don't lead with that. They have this amazing ability to listen and also light the way for others. They don't need a lot of words when speaking. Their power is in listening and then movement with grace, actions with grace. And that lights up the room. So the keys to this ability is always in your hand. Harmonizing the divinity within you, love, wisdom, power, your divine spark, your threefold flame. And there's other terms for that as well. Bringing in your Christ consciousness, energy, qualities from that place. We'll pull a card from there in just a minute. You're conquering your fears. You're conquering your fears. So you can call on the light, maybe in the angelic realm, to assist you. Right? To assist you in stepping off the cliff, right? There's like a little cliff here. You're at your edges, right? Someone's pushing you to your edge. You're at your edges, perhaps your limitation, and you need a little guidance to step over what you are afraid of, the unknown. And your ego is getting in the way of the unknown. How does that might relate with the spiritual community, right? Because we're all at a level where information's coming through you directly and it's an unknown place to be. And if someone's been teaching and their teaching hasn't evolved, what happens? It's a threat to perhaps their livelihood. It's a threat to what they've become used to. It's a threat to they're limiting their own growth. Their ego starts to take over, and what happens? You hear judgments of other people, tearing down of other people, tearing down of others that do similar work. Where's the grace in that? Where is being the leader in that? Right? Where's being the leader in that, in supporting others through the fear of the unknown, of the going into the threshold as the collective and individually, right? Some of these things stem through your own family circles, right? So spiritually, if you're in spiritual circles, those of you are seeking and calling out for your soul family to come in, and then you think you're in it by being in a, and I'll use these quotes, spiritual community, right? Because we're all of spirit, it's community. Let's not over-identify with the label. The way your communities function is becoming more and more important. Is it heart-centered? Is it balanced with the threefold flame? Is it truly bringing light to something, or is it tearing something down in a way that lacks grace and integrity? Right? And this isn't to cast judgment, it's to support you in moving from judgment to discernment, recognizing, oh, I have to pause for a second. All right, thanks. So my laundry, you might hear it behind me. It's a little loud today. So bringing this back to spiritual communities. So maybe some of you that are involved in spiritual communities need to take an audit of the way it's being facilitated and held. And it doesn't mean it's bad or good. It's meaning using your discernment. Okay, go into your higher self, bring that energy in, and you ask yourself, is this the right place for me? Am I gaining anything from it? Because you're gaining something. And if it means that you learned how to be more discerning because your involvement with that group or facilitator, then great. That's where you go into the gratitude, become that leader, that balanced place as you're answering your own call to the light. Okay, you're answering that own call to your light. You're letting go of the fear of not being in a community because you will find it or create your own. People will start to be drawn to it because you're magnetizing. As you make choices, you're magnetizing the light in you, and it's going to draw your community to you, your soul family, if you feel like you haven't gotten it yet. So you can create this harmonious circle, still have differences of opinion, but because the opening of your heart and your ability to be in the divinity, your divine will of God, to bring in wisdom, not just knowledge, into love, right? And to bring truths, because when we work with Metatron's energy, it's about bringing truth to the surface as well, your own truth within yourself. And you can be like, you know what, I was part of that, and I realized it just wasn't for me anymore, because I realized certain truths within the group, within the way it was being run, and within myself, it just no longer worked, and that's okay. But you be grateful and the gratitude for what you gained. Because anything you experience in life, you're gaining something if you're willing to have that deeper self-awareness, listen to what's occurring for you, stepping further into your sovereignty, trusting your intuition, letting go of your fear, moving it into more of, you're building your self-esteem. So if you find yourself leading with your credentials, I would invite you to check in with yourself on where your insecurities are. What is all these credentials and studying and just to have more credentials so you can say you have something from a knowledge background or a completion background, and you're leading with that when it's unnecessary to really share that background, right? Because you want to move into grace. Someone that has a lot of grace and integrity, they're not leading with that. Oftentimes we discover their background later, even after they've passed on, and realized, wow, the depth of that person and how many people they may have impacted in their life, right? Because you can be even self-studied, right? So if you find yourself like, oh, you know what, I tend to do that. And then people going back and forth, well, I've studied this, I studied that. And then it's like this one up type of thing happening. And it's trying to exert power over each other and to control. You don't even realize it because that ego, it's hitting on some emotional, it's hitting on some trigger in you cellularly. So how might you be willing to look at yourself, call on Archangel Metatron to assist you, bringing in your light, stepping into your own leadership, help you shine the light on, hey, let's resolve this and bring it back into harmony. Let's shed some light on this. And where might that insecurity stem from, right? Perhaps it did stem from your family circle growing up. Maybe there were certain expectations of you and you wanting to be accepted and approved of by others, by your parents or a teacher or some other mentor. So pay attention as you're also working with spiritual communities and facilitators. Are you trying to gain their approval by doing everything they say, you right? Or are you there to go, you know what, I'm going to learn as much as I can here in these concepts and ideas and theories and how the body's operating and taking steps into your ascension and soul growth. And just be in curiosity and ask question, right? Because even with someone says, oh, well, that's not in alignment. That whole gesture, well, that's not in alignment. We're on different frequencies. That's judgment. That's not discernment. That's judging the other person. And it's even judging yourself where you're at. The ego takes over and goes, well, I'm better than that person. We're on different frequencies. That's an egoic statement in the negative pole of the self. That's a lower vibration. Even if you're holding higher frequency of energy coming in, I would even question what level that would be, right? Because it's one thing to have the knowledge of higher frequencies, it's another to embody it through the experience and then the wisdom of holding that light, right? So pay attention to your language, to other people's language. And the way to reharmonize that is come back to the breath, call in your I am presence, come into your heart center. If you're recognizing that's how you're speaking or someone else is speaking, and go into the deeper truth of what is. You may even be able to see the deeper truth of the situation before you as you look down upon it, right? You're learning how to see things from a higher perspective, multiple points of view, multiple parties involved. And I'm hearing like, just own it, as I'm hearing like seeing the Om symbol for this other card, the void, retreat, rest, and pause. So right now we're talking about pausing through the breath. And yeah, own it, just own it, as a friend of mine say. We're like, oh, just own it, meaning recalibrate by om. You can even just hum. You can say it inside to yourself and feel that vibration realign you, bring you back in to your leadership qualities, your I am presence, leading by example, which means you self-correct. You excuse yourself and go, oh, forgive me. I just, I didn't mean to be doing that. Let me listen to you. You take ownership and responsibility for your behavior. And then you choose no longer to behave that way. You choose the higher way of behaving, and it gets easier. And that's how you rewire your neurons, by making different choices, then acting on those choices that are in accordance with your I am presence. And recognize, oh, thank you, body. Thank you, body. Thank you, my emotional body, my mental body, my physical body, for showing me and feeling the contraction, feeling the frustration and anger, or whatever energy of emotion you want to place on it. And that you, in your self-mastery, because you're breathing, you're slowing down, you're connecting with your heart and your I am presence, are learning how to master your subtle body and understand what it's relaying to you, what information through energy and vibration and frequency it has for you. And then you and your divine will make different responses in accordance to your higher self. Not my higher self, your higher self, your sovereignty, your intuition, your higher guidance, purifying your soul. So sometimes you have to pause. Go into the void of yourself, the still point, the 0 point field. Breathe there. And just be in the breath. Be in the breath. Slow down. Allow the body to catch up. And just listen. And it's listening in a very deep way. not preparing a response for the other person, not even preparing a response for yourself. It's just observing the breath, the stillness of your body as it slows down, the stillness of your mind and your thoughts as those two will slow down. And you focus on breathing, bringing rest to your bodies, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. Mastering the art of surrender and letting go. Being the stillness of all that is and all life and creation that is of source energy. And it's a pulsation. In and out through the breath of God, the life force energy in through the pranic tube. As it anchors and resets and recalibrates your spinal cord, your nervous system, your light body, strengthening your silver cord in direct connection to God, to source, and that which helps anchor you to your physical body through the breath, through energy. When you go into this void, fully protected, fully sovereign, you're in the ethers, you're in the space of anything and everything exists all at the same time. Connecting to your pure essence and invite in God. Continue breathing. Take time for retreat. Take time for restoration. Take time to pause. The more you practice breathing and pausing, even while you're interacting with others, you will begin to master and discern the subtle energies that run within you and the subtle energies that run within others and the subtle energies that are all around you. It is through your breath that maintains your ability to stay focused, calm, in the stillness of your being, in a state of peace and grace. And hold it with love, with light. Know that you're leading the way of your life. You're stepping through the fear. You're at your edges and you're gracefully stepping through your fear. And you are fully supported in that. Fully supported. And you're calling forth your circles where you are fully welcomed into that light. There's joy there. There's no more suffering, only growth, only peace, love. Look at all the beautiful colors. Happy, smiling people. You'll always have joy in your heart. Your feet are free. You're fully connected to this earth and to God, all at the same time. So you can continue to lead your way through life and bringing light to your ascension. As you walk up that staircase, you have the keys. You have the keys. So surrender to that process. Let go of all the stuff that just doesn't matter. Just doesn't matter. Go back into the simplicity. Sometimes you just need to listen and master that. Your power to listen will be greater than your power to speak. Remember, walk in grace. Have the feet to walk in peace. The boots, right? Your armor of God, part of that is walking in peace. May every step you make be a prayer upon this earth. Be a prayer upon this earth with every step, with every thought, with every word. With every word. So let's see what the Christ Consciousness deck has for us today in regards to ego, spiritual ego, and potential communities. Because I've witnessed in my journey, as those have grown, that spiritual ego comes up, and some facilitators feed it. Some facilitators will feed that ego of yours and promise you all these things. Oh, well, this and that. So some people, facilitators, one card already popped out, will lead with their ego. The spiritual community has a lot of ego in it. Okay. And what I invite you to do is not to be in judgment of it, but to call out the truth, even if it's just to yourself. Some of you will call it out to others. I tend to be more like, it's kind of a fine line, right? Because I don't want to be part of bashing or shaming or defaming anyone. Call the truth of what is, yes, but use your discernment. Discernment comes in really powerfully here. Where do you want to put your energy toward? And that way you're not also becoming exactly what you're judging, right? So there's where you shift into discernment and go, well, I'm learning from this and I'm going to be this way. Not because you're better than or anything, because you have to remember every soul has their soul agreements. They're in ascension too. They're going through their awakening process as well. And they too are growing and expanding and learning. And be the change. Holy anger, be the change is the card that popped out. Holy anger, be the change, right? But sometimes what happens, people perpetuate the same thing they're fighting against. Right. So if leading a spiritual community and then you're doing the same things that you're criticizing, that kind of motivated you to create one in the first place, you didn't change anything. You just rebranded it. You just rebranded it. Right. So be the change. Be the change in your own life, because this is about your spiritual sovereignty. No one can truly tell you right or wrong, what's right or wrong for you. Pave your way, learn how to connect with your I am presence, learn how to purify your field and remove energetic blocks and artificial implants and various things of that nature. Learn how to do those things. Those are very foundational skills of self-mastery, which also will deepen your practice of discernment, subtle energies, and to integrate, right? Because a big part of these things are to integrate your highest potential, your highest light, your Christ consciousness, your I am presence, your Christos Sophia codes, your masculine and feminine energies, the Kundalini energy rising up within you to be in harmonics and balance with your entire being, and to be in the flow of the universe for the highest good of all, and to enjoy this life, to enjoy the life you're creating and leaving for others, right? And because there's others walking this world after us. This kind of reminds me when I used to go to the beach growing up, and I still do. Leave it cleaner than the way you arrived. And that's what I feel a major part of all of these things that all of us are doing in our own time, in our own divine time, is we're purifying our soul. We're purifying our entire soul record and history. I may have to pause for a second. Ted. I'm dog sitting Ted. So anyway, be the change. We're purifying the soul. You are purifying the record of your soul. So that means you're mastering forgiveness, huge mastery skill. You're mastering the ability to listen and use discernment and turn knowledge into wisdom, balancing your threefold flame, right? To be your inner leader, your inner compass, your inner shaman, your I am presence, whatever term you want to use for it, name it, call it whatever you want. You don't have to use I am presence. You don't have to use Christ consciousness. That's energies. You don't have to call it that. Okay. So part of what happens with the ego is this over-identification. It's an over-identification with, oh, I'm a spiritual facilitator. I'm a spiritual this. I have run this, this, and that. If I'm leading with my credentials, that for me could potentially be a warning flag. Right? Or that little bit of that term gaslighting when someone's like, oh, well, you could have really learned a lot here if you stayed. I remember years ago, a friend of mine wanted me to be part of, I forget the name of the group, but it was like a leadership thing. And a lot of people did it back in the day, like in the 90s and 80s, and maybe even 2000s. And it was great for him because he had a lot of growth for it. And I remember at that time, we were in our early 20s, and I think I was reading Conversations with God at the time, and it was really validating for all, like recognize, oh, this is what I've been doing for a while, right? It was validating to where I was at in my own growth. And he made a comment to me. He's like, you're doing all this stuff on your own. Maybe you should come over. And where he was learning all these things, and he couldn't understand how I was already doing it and I didn't have the type of training he was seeking, right? And it's not a judgment. Everyone's going to either you come into it already innately, right? Because on a soul level, you might already have these qualities. You've gotten to a certain place where you're just born with the qualities already innately in you that are active and present and out, right? You're living that way already. Where others, they're like, they have other things happen in their life, then they seek facilitation, and then they're drawn out, those same qualities, because they exist in all of us, but they get drawn out at different times. Okay. And he couldn't understand how I was where at level I was at, where he was just learning it. And I didn't have the formal guidance in the way he did. Right. So he brought me along, and I sat in with the first half of the session. And then I just really, at the core of me, I'm just like, this isn't for me. Right. But it's not to discredit the growth other people have had going through the same program. That facilitator, before I left, was the statement he made. Oh, well, that's too bad, because the next half of the class, I show you how to do all this stuff. And that, my gut just went, and I'm like, no, that's exactly why I'm leaving. because he really didn't show me anything because I was already doing it. And I don't mean that from an ego place. I mean that like there was something in him trying to keep people committed, and then they hook you in. So pay attention to the language someone is using, right? And you see that also in marketing, right? You see it in marketing. And I just had a conversation with a friend of mine going like, I'm not doing any of that marketing stuff in that way. Because there's something that to me was not pure in it. And that's for me. It may work for other people. I'm just trusting that I'm going to be guided, and those who wish to work with me and be facilitated in their own growth so they can, expand on their abilities and awareness so they can do it themselves, right? And trust themselves. They're going to trust themselves to go, oh, that's the person I want to work with right now. Whether it's me or someone else, doesn't matter. But I'm reminding you to trust yourself. So that example I gave, I trusted myself to say no. And I trusted myself to go other ways and continue to follow what felt right for me. And I still learned exactly what I needed from every aspect of my life that's brought me to this point. So will you. So will you. It'll bring you to this point. You'll be able to be the change and resolve the anger, right? Not continue to perpetuate the same behavior as others, right? You're being that leader in the light. You're a way shower. You're a way shower right now because there's many people that are waking up and they're trying to create their family circles and call it forward, but there's ego embedded in it in a way that that's almost like you're better than someone else. So pay attention to that when it's like, no, if we're all family, then you open your heart and you welcome, you acknowledge people. It doesn't mean everyone's in your close, intimate circle, right? Like I recently had a client where I was going through a phase like, oh my gosh, should I be working with her? And the light in her was so sweet. And then I started to pay attention to the books she had around because it was a mobile client. And I'm just like, she's finding her way. She's finding her way. And I had to have my conversation with God and be like, allow me just to be that vessel and let go of my own judgments. And then once I was able to do that, it was just so fine. I was able to show more love and compassion for her and her family and other things that I don't know. I don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but I can still be light in that space. I can still be light in that space. I could call on for assistance to step through the fear because it was an old vibration that no longer needed to be inside me, right? You can go to the still point at any time for that deeper listening. So as I waited for her to answer the door, that's what I did. I just went in to that deeper place within me to just listen and help me to be the light. Allow me to step aside my personality to let the light come in for that particular client. And that's it. And I say that's it, but it can be a challenge to be in that space and then to hold it all the time. But you can practice it all the time by going into your void, retreat, pause. So I don't think there's anything else. Let's see, Metatron, anything else you'd like to share? No, I think that's it for today. I hopefully you found this supportive and helpful to be in your power, your sovereignty, your discernment, And it's okay to see things differently than other facilitators. You're not meant to see it exactly the same way. Just take note and just write it down. You don't have to bring it in conflict with the facilitator. You just go into that place, breathe, reinforce your pillar of light, connecting to your I am presence, your heart. And if there's a topic they're talking about, even me today, talking a little bit about the ego, and self-mastery, Christ consciousness, write it down and go, oh, you know what? Because that conversation, something I saw it slightly this way. Because if you could bring in that conversation, that dialogue, and then it's like, oh, I had some inspiration. How do I master listening so I can master discernment versus judgment? So I can harmonize myself, the self. I can master the self, master the ego, repurpose it, bring it into your I am presence, purify your soul, right? Because then you go into the multidimensionality of your soul life, and you can reconcile all that in the present moment of now. And being in the stillness of your breath, going to that place, violet fire, and just invoke it, master that alchemy tool, because it's directly related to your divine spark. And it can assist you in purifying you on a cellular, molecular level as you bring in your new body, your Christ-like body, your light body, your crystalline body. So I leave you with that. Breathe, be in your pranic tube of breath. And we'll end with a couple tones. I'm Gina, Soul Inspired Reflections. Much love to you. I hope you found this insightful in some ways. Have a really blessed day.